I first heard about willow pines from truckers running the northern road. They always talked about it in half whispers, never fully explaining, only warning. If you're ever driving Route 17 after midnight, they'd say, don't stop at the gas station near the tree line. Keep going, no matter what. I always brushed it off. Truckers exaggerate. Stories grow in the dark. I didn't believe any of it. But on the night everything changed, I wasn't planning to stop at all. I was just trying to outrun a storm. The fog rolled in faster than I expected. Thick, heavy, blinding. My headlights could barely cut through it. Then my fuel light came on, a soft ding that felt way louder than it should have. I looked at the gauge, almost empty. My fault. I'd skipped the last station thinking I'd make it to the next town. A small glowing sign appeared through the fog. White, flickering. Gas open 24 hours. It shouldn't have been there. There were no stations marked on this stretch of road. None at all. But my engine sputtered, coughed, gave me no choice. I pulled in. The place looked abandoned as no cars, no movement, just one ancient pump in a shack with peeling paint. Only one thing felt wrong immediately. The lights were on inside the store, but I couldn't see a single person, not a shadow, not a silhouette, nothing. I stepped out of the truck. The air felt colder than it had any right to be. Not winter cold, wrong cold, like walking into a room where someone had just been arguing. The fog clung to my clothes. My breath came out in thick white streams, too thick for the season. The pump looked older the closer I got to it. Rust-eaten, bent, like it hadn't been used in decades, but the digital screen was on. Bright green numbers glowing faintly. Waiting for me. I lifted the nozzle. It was warm, warmer than my hand, as if someone had just used it. Something about that made me hesitate. Not fear, not yet. Just hesitation. Hello? My voice sounded strange in the open night, like the fog swallowed it before it traveled anywhere. No answer, just the hum of the old fluorescent lights. I started fueling anyway. The numbers climbed slowly, too slowly, like the pump was thinking about each drop before letting it go. That was when I heard it. A tapping, soft, rhythmic, coming from the store window. Tap, 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 tap. I turned toward the building. The window was fogged over from the inside. Something was moving behind it, sliding across the glass, tracing lines, fingers, 5 long streaks drawn downward, as if someone inside was dragging their hands slowly, deliberately. I froze. My skin tightened. I felt watched, but I still couldn't see anyone. Then the tapping stopped. Silence returned. I wished it hadn't. A moment later, the store door creaked open an inch, just an inch. Not enough to see inside, just enough to show someone wanted me to know it opened. The pump clicked, fueling complete. The sound snapped me out of my trance. I put the nozzle back. My hands were shaking. Something inside the store whispered my name. Not shouted, not called. Whispered, slow, precise, as if it was right behind the glass. I didn't wait. I stepped back towards my truck. That was when I heard footsteps behind me. Fast. Too fast. I spun around, but through the fog, I saw nothing. I held my breath, my ears strained. The fog pressed in so thick it felt like standing inside cotton. But the footsteps had been real. I knew that sound, heavy, fast, human, or close enough to human. Hello? My voice cracked. I hated that it cracked. No response, just silence deep enough to feel like a threat. I backed up slowly toward the driver's side door. One hand on the cold metal, the other clenched, useless but ready. A shape drifted past the edge of my vision, dark, tall, too smooth in its movements. I whipped my head around. Nothing. Only fog, only quiet, only the sound of my heartbeat pounding like a fist inside my skull. I pulled open the truck door. The old hinges squealed louder than they should have. The sound felt wrong in the still air. Then the radio inside the truck turned on by itself. Static, deep, aggressive, like someone screaming underwater. I froze in place. My hand still on the door. I hadn't touched the radio. The keys weren't even in the ignition. The static shifted, flattened, twisted, and through the distortion, I heard a voice, very faint, barely cutting through the noise, a whisper shaped like a warning. Don't leave. The truck's cabin was empty, no movement, no shadows, but the voice came from inside. I stepped back instinctively, my breath fogged the air in front of me. The fog looked thicker now, darker. Something moved again, this time behind the gas station. A silhouette, tall and narrow, longer arms than any person should have. It stepped behind the storage shed and vanished. I felt a cold spike climb my spine. Not just fear, recognition. Because at that moment I understood one thing clearly. Whatever was out here knew I was alone, knew I was vulnerable, and knew my name. The static on the radio sharpened suddenly, turning into a clear sound. A single slow knock from inside the truck. Knock, knock, knock. 3 times. Deliberate. Too calm. I stepped back farther. Mist swirled around my legs like something alive. Then behind me from the open store door, I heard someone whisper, "Come inside before it finds you." My stomach twisted because the whisper didn't sound threatening, it sounded scared. Whoever said it was afraid of what was outside with me. I didn't sleep after what happened with Mr. Baylor. Not because he vanished in the blink of an eye, but because of the way he looked at me right before it happened. Like he was relieved. Like disappearing was better than staying here. By the time the sun came up, I'd already made a decision. I was going to the old library. Not because I thought the books could help, but because I needed to know if the rumors were true. People in Ashgrove always said the library was wrong. Too many staircases that don't match the outside footprint. Too many dead spots where your voice doesn't echo back. Too many corners that feel like they're waiting for you to turn them. It wasn't the kind of place you go when a neighbor gets swallowed by the dark. But I didn't have any other answers. Ashgrove never locks anything, but the library should have. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped inside. There was no librarian, no lights, no hum of an air conditioner. Just rows of tall, narrow shelves and the smell of old dust and damp wood. Then I noticed something stranger. Every clock on the wall had stopped at the same time. 5:27 p.m., the exact moment Mr. Baylor vanished. I felt the air shift, like the whole building exhaled when I walked in. I should have run, but the same pressure that had been following me all week pushed me forward, down the main aisle toward the back reading room. Last time I was here, it was a normal space. Round tables, soft chairs, a mural of the town's founder. Now, the mural was gone, the tables were gone, the room had stretched twice as long as it should be, and at the far end, illuminated by a single overhead lamp, was a book. A book already opened, waiting for me. I approached slowly, my footsteps echoing as if the floorboards were hollow. The air grew colder the closer I got, until my breath fogged the glass of the lamp. The book was handwritten, slanted, messy script, but the title froze my spine, The 6 Who Remain. 6, I whispered it under my breath. It couldn't be a coincidence. I had just told you, Mom, about the 6 houses with sealed windows, the 6 families who didn't talk to anyone, the 6 people who watched me from their porches with hollow eyes. I turned the page. There were drawings, black ink sketches of streets and houses. Our streets, our houses. Every one of the 6 houses was marked with a black circle. Then there was a 7th drawing, a house I didn't recognize. But my stomach dropped anyway because it looked exactly like my own house, except for the figure drawn in the upstairs window. A figure that looked like me, right behind me, a soft, steady breath at the back of my neck. I spun around. No one. Every shelf was still, every doorway empty, but the whisper returned, this time from the far end of the long room. Come here. It was my mother's voice, but my mother was 3 states away. I backed away from the table, slamming the book shut. The lamp flickered once, then twice, then went dark. In the silence that followed, I heard the sound that will haunt me forever, footsteps. Dozens of them, coming from between the shelves, coming from the ceiling, coming from under the floor, coming toward me. I didn't think, I ran, through aisles that seemed to shift behind me, toward a door that kept moving further away the closer I got. And those footsteps, they matched my speed. Every sprint, every skid, every gasp, I burst through the front door into daylight, and the library door slammed behind me on its own. The whole building shuddered, and then it went silent, like nothing had happened at all. As I stumbled backward onto the sidewalk, gasping for air, I noticed something horrible. Every person on Main Street, every single resident of Ashgrove, had stopped walking, stopped talking, stopped moving. All of them were facing me, and all of them were smiling. Too wide, too rigid, too wrong. But it was their eyes that made me freeze, because they were the same eyes I'd seen drawn in that upstairs window. The same eyes Mr. Baylor had just before he disappeared. Empty, resigned, waiting. One by one, the townspeople raised their hands and pointed at me. I didn't move. I couldn't. The entire town, dozens of people, stood frozen on Main Street, all of them pointing at me with the same stiff arms and hollow eyes. No breathing, no blinking, no shifting weight, just that dead, stretched out smile on every single face. My first instinct was to run, but my legs locked. The only sound on the street was the buzzing of a fluorescent light from the corner diner sign and the faint groan of something shifting behind the library door behind me. I swallowed hard. "Hey," I said, trying to sound calm, trying to sound human. "What's wrong with everyone?" No response, just the pointing. Then in unison, perfect unison, their arms lowered, their smiles dropped, and all their heads tilted to the side at the exact same angle, like puppets on one string. That's when the woman closest to me, a baker I'd seen 100 times, opened her mouth, too wide, far wider than a human jaw should open. No sound came out, but the others, they mimicked her. One by one, jaws unhinging, opening, stretching, until the entire crowd was standing there with gaping mouths pointed straight at me. Still silent, still tilting, still watching. My stomach twisted. I stepped back slowly. That's when the sound finally came. Not from them, from above. A high, wavering siren cut across the town. Not like a tornado siren, not police, not fire. It was thinner, more human, like someone blowing through a long metal tube. The crowd reacted instantly. All of them turned their heads toward the water tower at the edge of town, every one of them at the same time, like their necks were controlled by a single hand. Then they all lowered to their knees. The sound got louder, but pressure built in my ears until it hurt. The air felt heavier, like the atmosphere was tightening, pushing down on everything. The crowd didn't look at me anymore. Whatever was coming, it wasn't meant for them. It was meant for me. At the base of the water tower, it stepped out from behind the metal supports, tall, thin, too long-limbed, like a stretched human silhouette. No face, no detail, just darkness standing in daylight. A second stepped out behind it, then a third. All three lifted their heads in my direction, even though they had no eyes. And when the siren dipped low again, the library door behind me clicked, unlocked itself, and something pushed it open from the inside. A cold draft swept across the back of my neck. I didn't look. I couldn't look, because the shadows near the water tower were beginning to move, slowly, deliberately, toward me. Their limbs didn't swing like they had joints. They glided, like marionettes being pulled through thick water. The siren pulsed again. My vision blurred at the edges. My legs almost buckled. The door behind me whispered as it opened wider. That same voice, soft, close, familiar. "Come back," my mother's voice, but lower, wrong echoes in the whisper. The shadows were picking up speed now, sliding across pavement, growing taller the closer they got. I had two options. Go back inside the library, the place that tried to keep me, or run toward open streets where the entire town was kneeling and staring with open mouths. Neither choice made sense. Neither choice felt survivable. But then, from one of the kneeling townspeople, a single voice croaked out, "Don't run." Her mouth didn't move. Her head didn't lift, but her voice, shaking, desperate, buried under something heavy, forced its way out. They chased movement. My heart slammed against my ribs. The shadows were now halfway down Main Street. I stood perfectly still, not daring to breathe, not daring to even twitch. And the library door behind me stopped opening, as if waiting, as if listening, as if deciding. The siren dipped one last time, and all three shadows turned their heads sharply toward me. Even though I didn't move, even though I held still as stone, they saw me anyway. I didn't move, I didn't even breathe. But the shadows kept coming. Their limbs dragged through the air like smoke underwater. Their bodies bent in impossible angles with each glide forward. They didn't need motion to notice me. They simply knew. The kneeling townspeople stayed frozen in place with their mouths open so wide their jaws should have snapped. Their eyes stayed locked on the ground, and no one dared to look at me. No one dared to look at them. The siren behind the water tower cut off abruptly. Silence hit the street so hard it felt like pressure. My ears rang. My chest tightened. I felt something inside me whisper, "Move." But I didn't. I couldn't. The librarian's voice drifted from behind me again. Soft, warm, almost comforting. Too comforting. "You shouldn't be out there." I didn't answer. If I opened my mouth, I might scream. The shadows were close now, 15 feet away, tall, stretched, faceless, but each one had a faint glow in the center of their heads, like a pulsing ember, a fake eye, a locator, and they were locked onto me. A long, thin arm extended toward my chest. It wasn't smoke, it wasn't mist, it was something solid pretending to be not quite solid. Cold radiated from it. I felt the temperature drop across my ribs. It didn't touch me, it just hovered there, waiting for me to slip, waiting for me to twitch, waiting for any sign of fear. A high, thin whisper rose behind all three shadows. Not words, not language, just intent, hungry intent. All at once, every person on the street lifted their heads at the same time. Their jaws snapped shut, their eyes opened wide, wide enough that the whites swallowed everything. No blinking, no pupils, just plain white. They stared past the shadows directly at me. Not with warning, not with fear, but with recognition. Like they finally saw me the way the shadows saw me. Like they saw what was inside me. The baker, the one who first opened her mouth too wide, lifted her trembling hand and pointed straight at my chest again. Then she whispered something, quiet, strangled, fast. "He still hears." The rest of the crowd repeated it, hundreds of voices, all the same pitch, all the same tone. "He still hears. He still hears. He still hears." The shadows twitched at the sound, like the phrase meant something important, like it unlocked something. The nearest shadow pulled its arm back slowly, then its head tilted at me, a long, bending curve, studying, trying to understand why I was different from the others. The crowd whispered louder, a chant now. "He still hears. He still hears. He still hears." My heart hammered. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, but I stayed still. I had to. Then the librarian's voice, still behind me, spoke again. Calm, clear, certain. "You really shouldn't be out there." Her tone shifted. It wasn't a warning anymore. It was a command. "Come back inside." My body shivered, because her voice didn't echo like a normal voice. It echoed like it was speaking from inside my skull, like she was standing right behind my eyes. The shadows froze completely. The town froze completely, and slowly every head, every shadow, every white-eyed face, and I turned toward the library door behind me. Not at me anymore, at what was inside with her. A low vibration rolled under my feet, like something huge was waking up. The librarian whispered again, right into my ear, even though she was still inside the building. "You hear me?" Her breath was cold, too cold, and then I understood something I didn't want to understand. I wasn't the one they were hunting. I was the one they needed, the one they'd been waiting to open. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Her breath was still on my ear, even though she was nowhere near me. The shadows in front of me began to lower themselves. Not kneeling, not bowing, just folding, like collapsing tents made of darkness. Their glowing centers dimmed as if whatever lived inside them suddenly felt small. The townspeople slowly stood. Their white eyes blinked for the first time, their mouths opened again, but this time it wasn't a scream. It was something like relief or surrender. The air around me thickened. Every sound felt muffled, like I was underwater. I took a step back toward the library. Only one. The shadows twitched as if they wanted to react, but something held them still. Something stronger, something behind me. I felt that cold breath again, this time at the back of my neck. You hear me better than they do. Her voice wasn't soft anymore. It was layered, like 2 or 3 versions of her were speaking at once, each one slightly out of sync. I swallowed hard. My throat felt tight. I wanted to ask what she meant, but my voice wouldn't work. The shadows started to rise again, taller than before, stretched in ways that hurt to look at. Their glowing cores brightened, not orange anymore, white, too white. They leaned toward me as if pulled by a thread tied to my chest. I staggered back another 2 steps. The voice behind me sharpened. Inside. A command. My legs moved on their own. I backed into the library doorway. The air inside felt different. Warm, quiet, wrong in a calmer way. The shadows flinched at the threshold, like something in the doorway burned them. The townspeople dropped to their knees again as soon as I crossed into the library's shadow. None of them moved, not even to breathe. I gripped the doorframe. My whole body trembled. The voice behind me whispered again, this time from across the room. You finally came home? I turned, slowly, and standing between the shelves was not the librarian. It was something wearing her shape. Her outline flickered like heat rising off asphalt. Her eyes weren't eyes. They were hollow circles lit from deep inside. She smiled, but the smile didn't move her face. Only the idea of her face. You can hear what they can't, she said, and that makes you ours. My breath hitched. I tried to step back outside, but my foot wouldn't cross the threshold. It felt like I was walking into a wall. She lifted her hand, a simple gesture. And behind her, every book on the shelves cracked open at once. Pages fluttered, whispering, soft voices, thousands of them, all speaking the same thing, stay. I felt something wrap around my ankle. Not physically, not visibly, just a pull, a grip, cold and patient. And I knew I wasn't leaving this library, not until I understood what they wanted from me. Not until I understood why I was the only one who could hear them. The whispering from the books grew louder. Not chaotic, not frantic, just deliberate. Like a choir that had practiced for centuries and was finally performing for one person. Me. My pulse thudded in my ears. I tried to steady my breathing, but every inhale felt heavier than the last. The librarian-shaped thing stepped closer. Her movements didn't match her footsteps. Her body shifted forward a second before her sound caught up. It made my stomach twist. You've been hearing us your whole life, she said. You just didn't understand what the sounds meant. I shook my head. I wanted to deny it, but the truth crawled up my spine. The ringing I'd always heard in empty rooms. The voices I thought were dreams. The way I avoided libraries without knowing why. I whispered, "What are you?" Her expression didn't change. Only the air around her did. It tightened. Darkened. We keep what is forgotten, she said, and we take back what tries to leave. A cold prickle spread across my chest. What does that have to do with me? The lights above us flickered. Every bulb hummed like it was straining. The books whispered faster, pages shivering. She tilted her head slightly. Because you were never supposed to leave this town. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? She didn't answer immediately. She just lifted her hand again, and one book slammed shut, hard, then another, and another, slamming like a heartbeat, boom, 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 until only one book remained open on the central table, an old leather-bound ledger I hadn't noticed before. Its pages glowed faintly. She gestured toward it. Read. I didn't want to. My body screamed not to, but my legs moved anyway. One step, then another. The closer I got, the colder the air became. I reached the table. The ledger smelled like old rain and something metallic. I looked down at the page. My throat tightened. Written in the center in neat ink strokes was a name. My name. My whole body went numb. "What is this?" I whispered. The librarian thing's voice drifted from behind me. "It's the truth." I forced myself to read the next line. It said, "Returned 17 years later." I stepped back so fast I nearly fell. "No," I whispered. "That's not possible." But the dates matched. Exactly. The ledger continued, "Returned to sender." My breath hitched. What does that mean? The room creaked, as if the entire building shifted an inch closer to me. The librarian thing finally answered. "You weren't born here. You were delivered here, and someone wants you back." The lights snapped out for a full second, pitch black. When they came back on, the shelves were empty. Every book was gone, except the ledger. And standing in the aisle between the shelves were the townspeople, all of them silent, staring, white eyes glowing and perfectly still. I stumbled backward. The librarian thing whispered from right behind my ear. "They've been waiting a long time." Every instinct in my body told me to run, but my legs wouldn't move, not even an inch. The townspeople stood in perfect rows, lining the aisles like silent statues. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. No blinking, no breathing, just watching me, waiting. The librarian thing stepped beside me. Her presence made the air colder, heavier. "They remember you," she whispered. "They never forgot." My voice cracked. "I don't know any of them." She tilted her head like she was studying me. "That's because you were too young to remember." The ledger page fluttered even though there was no breeze. A sharp metallic smell filled the room, like cold iron. I swallowed hard. "What do they want from me?" Her answer came slowly, each word deliberate. "They want to return what was taken." I shook my head. I'm not something you can return." But something in her expression told me I was wrong. The lights above us buzzed, then dimmed, then flickered in a slow pulse, like breathing. All the townspeople turned their heads toward the exit at the exact same time. Every single one of them. The sound of their necks moving in unison made my stomach twist. The librarian thing that whispered, "Your sender has arrived." The front doors of the library creaked open. Cold wind rushed in. The room went dead silent. Then I heard footsteps. Soft, measured, moving across the wooden floor. I forced myself to look. A tall silhouette stepped into view. At first, it looked like a person, but its outline shifted unnaturally, like its body didn't agree with its own shape. Its shadow stretched far too long behind it. My heartbeat thudded painfully against my ribs. The librarian thing leaned close. "Do you feel it?" I didn't want to, but I did. A pressure, a pull, like gravity itself was trying to drag me toward that thing. My knees trembled. "No," I whispered. "Stay away." The figure stopped. It tilted its head slowly, too slowly, like it was testing its own movement. The townspeople all exhaled at once, one long, shuddering breath. The figure lifted an arm and pointed directly at me. My name echoed in my head, not spoken aloud, but inside, as clear as if someone whispered it against my skull. I gasped and grabbed my ears, but it didn't help. The librarian thing spoke softly, almost kindly. "It's time." The figure's voice suddenly filled the room. Not through sound, but through vibration. A deep, resonant hum that rattled the shelves and trembled in my bones. It took one step forward. The lights snapped off. Pure black. My breath hitched. I heard the figure move again, then felt something. A cold hand, closing around my wrist and pulling. Hard. The moment that cold hand closed around my wrist, every muscle in my body locked. I couldn't scream. I couldn't breathe. I could only feel its grip tighten, like it was trying to pull me out of myself. Not physically, but deeper. My vision flickered with static, even though the room was pitch black. I felt the librarian thing standing behind me. I could sense her shape bending in the dark. She whispered, "Do not fight." But I did. I yanked my hand back with everything I had. The figure's grip tightened. A cold burn spread up my arm, like frost crawling under my skin. My knees buckled. I hit the floor. I heard the townspeople shift closer. Their footsteps were slow, perfectly synchronized. The darkness seemed to breathe around me. I forced my head up, and then the light snapped back on. I gasped. The figure was inches from my face. Its features were blurred, like smoke trapped under skin. No eyes, no nose, just the faint outline of a mouth that stretched too wide. It leaned down, and I heard a voice inside my skull, a voice that sounded like me. "You left." My stomach dropped. "I didn't leave anything," I whispered. The voice grew sharper. "You were taken from us." The librarian thing spoke softly beside me. "We are returning you." I shook my head violently. No, I don't belong here." The figure's hand reached toward my chest, fingers long, thin, wrong. The closer they got, the more I felt my heartbeat stutter. The townspeople formed a tightening circle, their eyes all locked on me, their mouths slowly opening as if to draw breath. I felt the world tilting, twisting, pulling, like something was trying to peel me out of my own body. I screamed, not from pain, but from the sheer wrongness of it all. A sound cut through everything, a sharp mechanical chirp, then another and another. The room froze. The librarian thing's head snapped toward the doorway. The townspeople stopped moving. The figure's hand halted inches from my chest. I blinked, confused. It was the sound of an alarm, a real alarm. My phone alarm, the one I set to keep myself awake on long drives. The moment I recognized it, the entire library shuddered. Like reality itself had glitched. The floor beneath me rippled like water. Light fractured. The librarian thing reached toward me, her face twisted in panic. "Do not wake up yet," she hissed. But the townspeople began to unravel, literally, their shapes dissolving into long streaks of shadow. The figure in front of me flickered violently, like an image losing signal. The room buckled, and then everything snapped into white. I jolted upright in my truck, engine still running, windows fogged from my breath, my phone vibrating loudly in the cup holder. 3:03 a.m. glowing on the screen. My chest heaved, my arms still throbbed. I looked down. There was a frost-white handprint around my wrist, perfectly shaped, perfectly real. And when I exhaled, I saw my breath hanging in the air, even though the heater was on. I sat there for a long time, just breathing, just staring at the frost-white handprint on my wrist. I kept telling myself it wasn't real. It couldn't be real. Dreams don't leave marks. Nightmares don't follow you into the cab of a truck. But the air was still cold, so cold the heater couldn't keep up. I finally forced myself to drive. Just get home. Just put distance between me and that place. The highway was empty, not a single car, not a single light, just miles of black road stretching into nowhere. After a few minutes, the radio crackled. I hadn't even turned it on. A soft whisper bled through the static. "You shouldn't have left." My hands tightened on the wheel. I turned the radio off. The whisper continued anyway. "You were taken from us." My stomach twisted. That was the same voice I had heard in the library. The same voice that sounded like me. The static grew louder. Then it cut off completely. A new voice came through. A woman's voice, sharp, panic-stricken. "If you escaped, don't stop driving," she said. "They can follow you into waking hours." I froze. I knew that voice. It was the librarian thing. But she didn't sound monstrous this time. She sounded afraid. Before I could react, the radio cut out again. Silence, then my truck's headlights flickered. For a split second, the road ahead lit up, and I saw something standing on the shoulder. A tall shadow, long arms, no face, just watching me pass. The lights flickered again, and suddenly there were more, dozens of them, lining both sides of the highway, perfectly still, perfectly silent. I pressed the gas pedal to the floor. My truck roared, but the shadows didn't move. They only turned their heads as I sped past, slowly, in sync, like the whole town was following me with their eyes. The handprint on my wrist burned, ice cold, deep. I drove faster, my heart slamming in my chest. Then, a sign on the side of the road flashed by, just one word, Welcome! Another sign appeared a mile later. You are returning. My breath caught. This couldn't be happening. I had driven straight out of that town. I knew I had. But the highway? It was looping. Every turn brought me back to the same sign. Over and over. I slammed the brakes and grabbed my phone. I opened the map app. My location was a pulsing blue dot. Sitting right in the center of the town I thought I'd escaped. And then the dot started moving. Not forward, not backward, but downward, sinking deeper into the map. Past roads, past buildings, past any place a human should be. Until finally the name of the location changed. The place we keep what's ours. My breath stopped. The radio clicked on one last time. A whisper curled through the speakers. You never left. I looked up. The lights on the highway went out, one by one, until there was only darkness, and something standing right in front of my truck, smiling with a face it had borrowed from me. If this story kept you watching, there's another real horror waiting for you. Click on the screen, and don't watch it alone.